Welcome to Stories with the Golf Professors, a show that brings you into the classroom with university golf professors who discuss all things golf. My name is Brad Turner, PGA Certified Professional and Executive Director at the College of Golf at Keiser University. With me on this episode is Program Director and PGA Master Professional Brian Hughes and University Professor and PGA Certified Professional Ken Martin. Today's episode, our first episode, I thought it was going to be more of a episode recounting the success of the USA team in the Ryder Cup, but I'm titling it the Ryder Cup Post-Mortem, which unfortunately that's where we landed on Sunday evening. So to throw it out, and I'll send this to Professor Hughes, at what point did you think that Europe was going to be retaining the cup?
Well, let me tell you a little story.
Okay.
As a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, suffering for many years recently, I have this sense at the beginning of every game that when something goes wrong, here we go again. Well, that was my sense Friday morning, because we have done so poorly in the past with foursomes that our best bet was to get off to a great start. Instead, they didn't. And my immediate thought was, here we go again. And to not get the crowd behind them right away, I just think gave the team from Europe much more momentum. They took the crowd out of play a little bit, and U.S. players, who many of whom have lost to them a couple times, probably were thinking, just like me, here we go again.
Professor Martin, what do you got to say about that?
Well, hope springs eternal in most of what I'm looking at, and I was quite hopeful that was, even though they made quite the statement in the morning, I was just quite hopeful that the crowd would get into it enough to where things would start to go a little bit more in favor of the U.S. However, I was starting to lose hope after the first set of matches, just simply because the quality of golf that was being played was just stellar. I think basically on both parts. However, Europe just seemed to have been paired up so well as playing excellent. So it took me a little bit longer than the first morning matches. However, not much into the afternoon.
Well, Ken, you bring up pairings, and what do you think of the morning pairings? I thought the first one was great because you get Bryson and Justin out there together. That's a great opportunity to get the crowd fired up.
Absolutely.
Putting Scotty out in the second group, still pretty good. And then we get to pairing number 3, and I wonder, Morikawa and Harris, where that particular pairing came from, because I think that didn't help them any.
That seemingly was the big flaw, and it didn't just stop there with that pairing. Yeah, that's a very interesting one. I mean, just checking data and the direction, how that decision was made, it would actually be quite interesting to find out how the decision was made for that pairing. But without a doubt, that was the weak link.
Well, why aren't you starting your defending U.S. Open champion, your current U.S. Open champion? I mean, who's played better golf than J.J. Spahn this year? Instead, he's sitting at home watching golf on TV just like you and I were.
Yeah.
I think that's a potential mistake.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no doubt. Day one was tough. And for myself, on Saturday, that was my first Ryder Cup. I was actually up at Bethpage. So going to the Ryder Cup was a bucket list item for me. And we got there very, very early. Could not find a seat on number 1, but we found a spot fairly close to the ropes, I'd say. And my experience with the Ryder Cup first tee was every bit as what I expected. It certainly met my expectations. To say it exceeded my expectations may be a bit of a stretch, but because I expected a lot. And the crowd was excited. Day 2, we're definitely going to come back. The tee shots that we hit on number 1, the Americans hit really good tee shots. The crowd's going crazy. And I thought to myself, after 4 groups going through, this is great. I'm glad I'm here. And then an hour later, I was thinking, well, maybe I'm not so happy about being here. It was very difficult to see anything at the Ryder Cup, and we ended up parking ourselves on hole number 14 and waiting 2 hours there
Just watching things on the Jumbotron?
Watching things on the Jumbotron and just waiting for Bryson to come and the rest of the boys, right? We were on the ropes, and by the time they got to us on 14, it was probably 20 deep. You really had a hard time seeing. But you go to the Ryder Cup for the experience, for the excitement, and to watch the greatest players in the world play. It was, to me, fantastic. The golf course blew my mind, and now realize why people rave about Bethpage Black. It looked very difficult to my eyes, but as Ken was saying earlier, these are the best players in the world, and they're just making birdie after birdie on holes that a par would be just fantastic for a scratch player. A scratch player par would be very, very good score, and these guys are making birdies.
Well, along those lines, there's been a lot of talk, and as watching a lot of golf on Sunday, about the course conditions. To me, it resembled more of a local member guest tournament than a golf course set up for the best players on the planet. The rough was very short.
Yeah.
The ball set up in it. The greens appeared to be extremely soft, which means there was really no penalty for missing tee shots offline.
Yeah, you had to get one way offline before you were going to find some problems. Because I looked at the rough as you cross the fairways, you can see the height of the rough, and I'm thinking to myself, that's good rough because you can make really good contact, maybe catch a little bit of a flyer. But the thing is, as Brian's saying, once the ball hits the green, it stops immediately, even out of that. So
now they got some rain, right?
Yes, on
was
Thursday.
Was the whole golf course wet as you were walking around, or was it
by
just...
Saturday? I did not notice it.
Okay.
Did not notice
So
it.
it's not like you had to
Just-
buy a new pair of shoes or
No,
anything.
it was damp. I would say
Okay.
it was damp, but
Because the greens just look ridiculously soft to the point where it's like, I wish I was playing here.
Yeah.
Land the ball and it'll stop on a dime. And that just seemed to me like not exactly major championship type conditions for one of the biggest events in golf.
Yeah, absolutely. That was, you take one of the most difficult golf courses in the United States and basically tame it down to where I think anybody, especially the world-class ball strikers that were out there, there was just nothing in their way. They could take lines that they would have never taken if the rough was up to where it normally would be for a major, and also the length of the golf course. Although it was fun, I thought the first tee shot was actually a fun one to watch, and so that was excellent, I guess, if you could get a seat, but it sure was fun to watch on television. But for the most part, the golf course was so soft and simple that there was no advantage at all.
That first tee just shows you how great these guys are,
Yeah.
because on both sides, because they're taking a line on the first hole that would never consider in my mind. 380, 390 yard hole, and I'm going right at the green, going over the trees, and no issue at all.
Yeah.
the hole that really stuck out in my mind was 15, because when you're there and you see the hole, the elevation of the green is, I don't know how many feet, 30 feet at least, it seems to me. 484, no roll, and the fairway's a slight dogleg left, and it cants a little to the right. But because of the fairways being soft, lift, clean in place, if you hit the fairway, it wasn't a hard shot for these guys. But I thought, if the three of us went out there, it'd be drive, layup, wedge on. It's a par 5 for us, right? And these guys are.
Can I put a tee under the second shot too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, especially going up the hill. It was. I was just stunned how good the golf was. It was just spectacular on both sides. It really was, especially Sunday for Americans. That was great to see, because I thought that Captain Keegan was getting a lot of grief, and Captain Luke Donald was getting a lot of praise. But by Sunday, that all flipped, didn't it? So that makes me think, all the pundits that are out there saying, Keegan did this wrong, Keegan did that wrong, and Luke did everything right. All of a sudden on Sunday, what happened? I guess their brilliance, Luke Donald's brilliance, somehow dissipated, and Keegan got his team fired up. So my question is, how important is the captain in the Ryder Cup?
I think the captaincy is very important. I think that from a tradition standpoint, primarily, there's a lot that the captain does, team selections, there's pairings and strategy, course knowledge, and especially in this case, I think with Keegan Bradley and a lot of legwork by Luke Donald. Morale and motivation, part of it all. They have to be a liaison between media and players and the culture that's actually in the team room. So I think without a captain and with a strong captain, I think that it can make a real difference in performance for players. So I would be on the side just to say that, great golf is a function of the players. They're the one that hits the shots. There can be possibly some errors in the way the pairings are designed. However, all in all, players win matches by hitting great shots. And I think we saw a lot of really great shots from the Europeans and some really great shots from the Americans on the final singles day. So, but all in all, I think that to put too much weight on the performance onto the captain would not be the correct choice, simply because it's the players. It all comes down to what'd you shoot. So that would be my take on that.
I'm going to agree with most of that. I think there is a lot that needs to be done by the players. I'm just not certain that the captain in that regard needs to be a player. Because when has Keegan Bradley ever organized anything of this magnitude in his life before? Because you're right, there's a lot of stuff that goes into it and details. And I think Luke Donald had a distinct advantage in the off-course stuff because he's done it before. Mm-hmm. And his playing career is almost over. And he's almost become a full-time Ryder Cup captain, whereas the U.S. is using Keegan, trying hard, but Keegan was also trying to make the team all year. So how much time was he able to dedicate to the preparation leading up to the event? I think once they're there and they're teeing it up on Friday morning, I think I could be the captain. Because at that point in time, you're just being a cheerleader. The work's already been done. So to fault Keegan for Morikawa and Harris getting beat 6 and 5 in the morning, I don't fault him at all for that. These guys earned their way on the team, and they were going to have to play at some point in time. I think there's a lot of work that goes into the captaincy that doesn't necessarily should fall on the role of a golf professional. Maybe it's an event organizer or something along those lines. Whereas the day of, you need somebody like that's been there and done that, like Keegan would be a good choice on game day. I'm just wondering about whether he's the right guy leading up to it.
Yeah, I'd actually agree with that, simply because I was surprised that Keegan Bradley was chosen as captain. I think there were a couple names skipped over that hopefully maybe we'll see next time.
Well, I don't even think he's been on the team for about 13 years, as I recall.
Right. Right.
So now, I think there was a sympathy pick, to be honest with you, because in the previous Ryder Cup, the one in France, Netflix made a big deal about him not getting picked for the team. Yeah. And the next thing you know, he's announced as the captain. And I just wonder if the PGA made a call to say, how do we fix this?
Is what it was. They were getting some grief. So we'll go back to 1967. Captain Ben Hogan, speech to his players. Here it is. Boys, there's nothing to being the captain of the Ryder Cup. You guys are all great players. Pairing is really easy. I'm going to pair together you boys who drive it crooked. I'm going to pair you boys who drive it straight. And for the first ball is going to be hit by Julius Burrows because he don't give a shit about anything. So y'all just go play your game. You got these uniforms here. If you don't like the way they fit or whatnot, don't wear them. I never could play in someone else's clothes. Doug Sanders, if you want to come out here and dress like a peacock, that's fine. Whatever you want. But I'm just going to tell you this, boys. I don't want my name on that trophy as a losing captain. That's not a bad speech by one of the great players of all time. And but 1967 was a little bit different than
time.
2025. Yep. So a little bit different. So let's go to one more question, since we're talking about the captains. Who should be the American captain in 2027? Well,
I just nominated myself a minute ago, didn't I?
yeah, I don't think that's going to
No?
pass. But if you
right.
do get nominated, I'd like to be an assistant.
Okay, all right. Well, you're in. Both you guys are in.
We're
If it
in.
gets to
Okay,
that
well,
point.
I'm voting for you.
All right, well, if
But
it's
in
not
lieu
me,
of you,
in
who
lieu
would
of
it
me, I don't know if I can get time off here at school for that much time.
Well, you can be off on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thanks. I think there's only one name that comes to my mind. It's Tiger Woods.
Yeah, I like that name.
He's not doing anything else at the moment. His playing career is essentially over. His players all worship the ground he walks on. And frankly, there's going to be, a higher amount of attention paid to it at this point in time. There's a short window for Tiger to be the Ryder Cup captain at this point. He's going to be 50 at the end of this year. Younger guys aren't going to know him. 4 or 6 years ago. If I'm the head of the PGA of America, I'm calling Jupiter, Florida, and I'm saying, Tiger, what's it going to take?
I agree 100% with that pick. How about you, Ken?
I think it's a great choice. I've kind of been surprised that Justin Leonard hasn't been captain. I have always thought that his understanding of history and integrity, I think, has always been a very strong point that he has. But Tiger Woods, I think absolutely would be a fabulous choice. I'm a little concerned about sometimes with health and the number of things that goes on in his life off the course. Just would he be up to the challenge, of that? Obviously not a problem with inspiration and I think pairings. I think he'd be fabulous. But yeah, I think the only con is possible health and time.
Well, and I think kind of back to my point about the importance of the Ryder Cup captain is maybe that's a good opportunity to put him out there on game days and having somebody else doing all the legwork. I just can't see Tiger sitting in an office somewhere picking out uniform colors for the 3 days. But somebody needs to do that, and it might be a good chance to get Tiger an assistant and have them do all the stuff that he doesn't want to do.
Yeah, I think his competitive fire that has driven him to where he has been in the golf world, he's got to feel as if it's not getting satisfied doing whatever he's doing, and maybe that's not the case. But knowing what we know about Tiger, he likes to compete. And I think competing as a captain is just an evolution of any top player, whether he embraces that or not. If he says no, then we know he's not embracing it. But I think he will probably realize that his playing career is pretty much done. Of course, Champions Tour is out there if he wants to do that. But Ryder Cup, he's not playing in the Ryder Cup. And if he's watching on TV, watching the guys play, you got to believe he wishes he was there. I just can't imagine Tiger not wanting to be there. Okay. That was my last question. So our first episode of Stories with the Golf Professor is in the books. On behalf of Professor Hughes and Professor Martin, we want to thank you for listening. Next time on Stories with the Golf Professors, we're going to talk about what golfers expect at the end of a golf lesson, which we kind of know what that is, but we'll share that with the audience. My name is Brad Turner, Executive Director at the College of Golf at Keiser University. Located in West Palm Beach, Florida, the College of Golf at Keiser University prepares students for various career opportunities by providing golf industry-specific programs, including golf management, turfgrass management, and golf instruction. Check us out by simply searching for College of Golf at Keiser University. See you next time. Class is dismissed.